Hey guys, what's up? It's Shla, and sorry, I'm just very upset with myself because I forgot to do the iconic door slam. So, yeah, I mean that's just a little bit stupid, but what can you do? That's probably the first time in a long time I've actually forgotten about that though. So, again, kind of frustrating honestly, but it is what it is, you know? It is what it is. I feel kind of horrible today. I'm not really sure why, but I guess I tend to have those emotional fluctuations. I'm not sure exactly why or what it is, but yeah, I don't know. I guess, and it was really, I mean, most of the day has been fine, but I guess towards the end it's been, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how I'm feeling about things. I've been getting really long hours at my job, but I'm anxious that that might not last forever, which is an understandable issue. Because I just really want to lock in and have these long hours forever, but I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. I don't know. And I always kind of overthink about those things. I mean, if it turns out to be fine, that would obviously be pretty cool. But I just don't know what things are going to be like. It's really hard to say. It's really hard to say. And so I guess I'm kind of in my head about that. And then in terms of the rest of my life, I saw a sprinkling of kind of a heightened spiritual awareness. I think that could have been just this Monday. Was that really just yesterday? It's kind of crazy. It kind of it's weird to think about, but my heightened spiritual understanding, as I'm coining it, is that feeling of final maturity where, I've always kind of wanted to be more of a quote unquote adult, if that makes any sense. And it hasn't really been until recently that's on Monday I really felt it. I really felt it more. And I think that's notable. I do. But at the same time, I'm not sure yet. We're still in the transitionary phase. And I think I'm just worried that I'm not going to have it together in time for if my hours get cut. I'm kind of using work, I think, as coping. Because it's very good, especially for the time being. Getting money early is the most important thing, right? Because you want to have a foundation. Now, later on, if you don't make quite as much, it doesn't really matter. It's once you get to a certain level, that's really the key, is getting a certain level of money stacked up. That's what matters. So I'm just happy to try to grab it while I can. Don't know if it's going to last or not, though. And I guess that just makes me nervous because I really wish I had the freedom to just continue to grab it. But that transition into the ultra adulthood, as I would call it, I don't know. Sorry, I just bouncing around a lot. I guess I could finish this thought, but I remembered what I was going to say. So I think I'm going to go back to what I was going to say now. What I was going to say is that I don't know if I'm ready, because obviously with less time at work, it's really going to mean more time needs to go into the craft. That's really what it means. And what I mean by craft is what it means. What I mean by craft is my speech. Because that's really where we're at right now, That's kind of what I need to be doing. And I think that's ultimately what's going to happen is if my hours get cut from work, I'm going to have to just record more. But the thing that's crazy is I'm going to be outputting so much then, because I'm not going to stop the car rides, but I'd probably just do the same style content, just even more. I think that's the issue, right? The culminating issue that's coming up is a lot of people might think, oh, what you're doing isn't really palatable, because most people just want some very polished kind of short form thing going on, and they might not really respect what you're doing. You need something a bit more edited or polished. And I've thought about that too, and I want to do that too, but the problem is that's not me. Right? It's not. I don't know. This is the kind of content I always liked and I always fell in love with. So there's no reason. I just don't see a reason for it yet. Of course, I do have some video ideas in more of a polished or edited format, but this really feels like what I'm happy doing. This is what's addictive to me. And if I had to do editing or polish or organization, I wouldn't like it. And that's obviously been kind of a frustrating thing for me to contend with. And I've thought that AI will be able to really help me with that. And that's why I've been fairly confident that AI will end up being a pretty big advantage for me. In some ways, although I have watched a lot of more AI critical content now, and it's making me question a little bit my aggressive pro AI stance. It makes me question things a little bit, because in a lot of ways AI is reducing the soul and the character, which I do care about in people a lot. I do care about the interesting dynamics that humans have and what they can create. And obviously AI cuts back on that creativity, and it's supplanting it with a bunch of junkier stuff. But I think the most concerning thing isn't even any of that. I think it's the fact that what it's doing to people, and really what technology at large is doing to people, I still don't like. I still don't like it. And I still feel hurt by the way I'm seeing it change people. And I guess I feel like as a futurist, as someone where I think I have a pretty good grasp of a lot of these future concepts, and a lot of it could very well end up being advantageous to me, as I've proclaimed before, there's still aspects of it that are sad for me, and I think the disconnected nature of it all is definitely one of them. It's just very difficult for me to really resonate with people and really find, I just don't know what happened to people, And well, I have some theories about it. But that's why I guess I'm having to embrace this medium, because I don't see any other way to communicate at this point. Things are so disorganized, and my original vision of using this series as the gateway, I think, will continue. It will continue to be the case, using this series as a way to still connect with people, as now I think it's really going to be the only way. As I've explained before, just the nature of how things are. To actually find somebody who's going to bother to give you the present time on a phone, it's rare. Nobody's available. People have other things they're doing, but the camera is like this infinite vessel where a conversation in a moment can be recorded permanently and then re-experienced by multiple people. And I think that's incredible. I think it's amazing to have that as an opportunity. But I still think I probably wouldn't like it. I still think at my soul level and at my happiness level, I would prefer the way things were before. but it just doesn't make any sense. Because with how cluttered and chaotic society is, people don't have the time. And then people have other friends who are also cluttered and chaotic. And you can't count on somebody to balance all that. There's all types of things that go on, and usually human-to-human dynamics are never fair, they're never calculated, they're just, again, sort of random. And so that's one of the things I hope AI enforcement could change, is adding a bit more order to things, and it's possible. It's possible, but I haven't seen it implemented too well up until this point. But it hurts. I think it hurts to be a person at my vantage point, because I feel forced to interact with this medium, and it's really not the way I wanted it to be. I mean, sure, half of it is true. I don't think I'm going to stop doing this, even with 0 views. I don't think I'm going to stop, because that's ridiculous. At this point, I think I've said multiple times, I don't think there's anything more productive I could do than this show during this car ride. I just don't know. Don't know what better thing there would be for me to do. It has been a good outlet. But the other half of what I wanted is not here. It's not happening. I really wanted this to be something that people watched and interacted with, and you kind of have somebody who's essentially a friend, but I'm also a real person. I'm not like an AI, and you can listen to the episodes and leave a comment and I'd respond, but nobody's doing that. Not only are people not really watching the content, it's not getting that much engagement, but it's definitely not getting comments or likes. You know what I mean? And I feel like that is more of a recent change, in all honesty. I almost wonder if I could look into that people's engagement has actually been reduced over time. I almost feel like people are liking videos less, they're commenting on videos less, they're subscribing to channels less, and people just do the bare minimum that the algorithm is enabling, which is the view, right? Somebody sees a video pop up in their recommended, and then they just watch it because that's the bare minimum. And I feel like a lot of people do that, and they don't really take the effort to do any extra steps if anything's necessary. Now, I don't know if this is just something difficult for me to understand, because like I've articulated before, I think I'm very adept at functioning in digital landscapes, and not in a particularly quick way or adaptable way, because a lot of times I do get kind of grumpy, or it's hard for me to assimilate to the way other people operate as on these digital platforms. But what I do know is I'm fairly adept at functioning properly within them, meaning if you're on a call with somebody, I understand the etiquette of that, and I still treat it with a weight, whereas most people I don't believe they do. I think people, it's hard for them to really comprehend unless somebody's really physically in front of them. The pain or the sadness or the joy, I think it's just hard for people, and they can't grasp it or something. And so we're operating in these landscapes that for most people are inferior, but they're hogging up all the time, and I think they will continue to be that way. I never asked GPT, but I was really curious about it, seeing the statistics, how many people actually interact physically now compared to digitally. Do most people communicate more through text or through call than actually bothering to hang out? I'd really, really like to see the data on that. And of course, I'm talking about younger people. I just wonder if it's reached over 50%, because what I see happen is you have the upper 20% of the population that gets the good looks, the attractiveness, the charisma, the ability to navigate social, the top 20%, looks, social brain, EQ, IQ, you know what I'm saying? Just the top 20 people. And then they get a lot of advantages and they're kind of still out shopping or living life. But then you have the bottom 80%, which I think have become spectators, where instead of you actually doing the thing, you just watch other people vlog or you watch other people travel. And that's how you get your feeling of goodness. But it's through a screen. No longer are many people physically getting to go to places unless you have a family of a higher socioeconomic status and or a family willing to go into debt for it. Because I see the way things being formulated as right in line with that high surveillance state, where they don't really want people going outside anymore. I don't think so. I think a lot of this stuff is probably by design to keep people in-house. In your house, it's more surveyable. There's a reliable Wi-Fi connection. Then again, of course, someday phone service is going to continue to improve, and eventually it'll be impossible to be in a no-signal area, probably. Because I don't believe that, as much as there are a lot of people who talk about living off the grid and learning how to hunt and being truly independent, I don't think any of that's really going to materialize. I think that just, it's not going to happen. I think, especially as time goes on, people are softer. People have no idea what to do. A lot of important skills have diminished. People, I'm assuming, don't know much about cars. I don't think I do, but I think I know a little more than the average person in terms of maintenance. But apparently a lot of people don't really get their car maintenance properly. And it's a shame, just oil changes and things like that. Apparently there's a portion of the population that just doesn't do it. Or you get a used car and something's wrong with it, but it's only because the previous owner didn't take care of it properly. There's so much negligence in this world, and that's the thing I really hope AI can solve, is to rein things in. It could be used for good, it really could be, but the exploitation of things would have to stop. And I don't think it will. I think things will continue to get more parasitic. As I updated my kind of consensus and prediction, I believe when I first started this show in May, I was kind of leaning into a lot of these socialist attitudes about things, and maybe even some right wing in terms of cultural, I'm forgetting the word. I hate when that happens because I usually don't, but I notice that's been happening to me recently. A little bit of conservative, interventionist, societal ideas, I guess, mixed with some socialism too, because I think those things actually go hand in hand, ironically. I think I've talked before about how the modern conservative movement, as in, late 70s and onward, has actually been fairly liberal in terms of intervention in morals and society, and allowing a lot of parasitic things to occur in the name of libertarianism and freedom. And I've talked about how I don't agree with that. But I think the problem is I just don't see how those things are going to improve. So I'm just living and let live. I'm joining the libertarians because I don't know. I mean, I don't understand what can be done, I guess. I think idealistically those policies make sense, and I'd support them, especially if there was accountability coupled in with it. But I think we're going to have a much darker system. I think the system that ends up getting implemented is going to be a survival of the fittest system. And I don't know how much I agree with that. But I'm feeling a little bit reassured, although I'm still nervous about it because I'm a doubter. I'm a worrier. Not a warrior, a worrier. I worry about things, and I recently thought I'd probably be exempt just because of the way I operate and interact with tech and how I think I am operating at a fairly good level, especially for someone my age, and I'm hoping to keep the energy going with that. So in terms of survival of the fittest, the only issue I see right now is that maybe I don't have a college degree and my income is not where it should be at, because I think I could do a job that requires precision, or really I could be working like an important job right now, but I feel like there's hurdles in the way based on residual weaknesses and flaws of a pre-modernized society. And that's another thing I hoped AI would fix, and why I think it helps me overall. I do. I think I benefit from it a lot, even though I think most people won't. But I think I will. But I could be completely wrong. I think basically what I'm getting at is I would rather still be in the past, and I actually agree with a lot of the anti-AI rhetoric. It's just, I don't believe it makes any sense to stop, because if we stop, competing countries aren't going to stop. And so that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, if we stop making AI, China will start, and then eventually India might, although I'm not sure how tech-heavy India really is, but it's humanity. I think we're dealing with humanity, and I think that's why it's difficult to have limitation, because we're going to end up losing. I think that's part of America's problem, is too much of a slacking culture. And I don't want to say that as if I'm sounding disconnected, because I'm not saying, oh, the problem is people are slacking and you need to work more hours. Like, no, it's not that. I think there's a problem when most of our employment is like fast food work. I don't really agree with that. I think instead of going to fast food, people could be repurposed for better jobs, and there could be more meaning in work. And that's the problem I think a lot of people have. I think they don't see meaning in their work, and maybe that's a flaw with modern life, and maybe we're hitting the intellectual limit of humans, but I don't know. I think that's really the problem, is that we are already fairly comfortable. I mean, we're not socialist, so I guess there still is sort of that growth mindset, but I don't even know how much that matters, because again, I think it's not even about socialist or capitalist. It's libertarian. I just think America, you're just kind of on your own. You know, the insurance is really expensive. Even if you have insurance, if something goes wrong, you're kind of just going to be messed up. Right? It's like you're on your own, and it already is aggressively survival of the fittest, and I don't know if that is the perfect system, because as far as I'm concerned, China is going to be ahead. I do think they're going to surpass us unless some crazy cultural shift happens, because too many Americans are just stupid and do a lot of really stupid things, which is why I'm saying I think our stagnation issue comes from comfort and a lack of vision, a lack of identity, culture, whatever you want to call it. I think that's really the problem in America. If everybody was having these level conversations, we would have no problems, And I just think the truth of it is that China is a lot more cognizant of the future, and they're kind of preparing to be able to surpass us, and they have been for a long time. And I just think people in America are more pleasure-oriented. But that's where I think it's interesting, because I guess I don't know about whether China's more socialist than America or not. But if I had to guess, they're probably not. I don't think quality of life, if I had to guess, is that great in China. You really hear a lot of bad things, and I think authoritarian versus libertarian is the more accurate descriptor. I think China probably does a lot more to try to keep things orderly, and America, it's just whatever, and people care about pleasure, and pleasure is a huge thing in America, and I'm assuming China is a bit more restrictive, a bit more regulatory, and I think America really needs to start to think in that way, because it's not going to work out in a competitive modern world. And not only that, but it's actually a smack in the face to our forefathers, the people who came here and founded the country. I don't think this was the intention at all. It's actually kind of interesting when you think about that, how I think America uniquely, because I don't know the history of that much depth, but if you look at Europe, or I'm assuming Rome, but I'm just going to say Europe, really, even China, I don't think there was remotely that degree of spontaneous surge and then followed by such a severe death. America's not even that old of a country. It's only 200 years old. I guess you could argue that it was sort of a European transplant, though. So maybe, yeah, because a lot of people from Europe founded it, and it was really, so I guess you could make that argument, but still, America is a very young country. It's a very young experiment, and it's kind of weird that things are already failing. I guess that could just be a product of its time, though, and that's probably what my new "it is what it is" theory would point to, is that really, even if America wasn't America, there would have been another America within those years, or it's just a weird timing of the golden age happening to be that. And if America was there or not, it wouldn't have mattered. All the other countries in the world would have still had the golden age, whether America even existed or not. So I do think it's just convenient timing. And like I said, America is not really truly its own culture. It's more of a European transplant. But hey, I mean, it has differentiated itself pretty clearly from Europe. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm saying in terms of cultural progression, it was not like America just started from nothing. They did reform European government and society in a new vision. I'm just saying that the way things have devolved, I don't really think people would have ever envisioned all the way back then. But then again, is any society like that? Probably not. But I just think we're seeing it more clearly with America. Just such a collapse. And a lot of people complaining about it, I think, are stupid too. Because there's a lot of people who don't want to work, and they say, oh, I could never imagine working 40 hours a week. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I could never do that. There's all these people saying that, but then they have nothing to offer anyway. And that's kind of what I think is weird. I mean, think about that. And I have sympathy to NEETs, because I was one. And in a lot of ways, I still kind of feel like a NEET. So it's not like I don't have sympathy to it, but at that point, I just don't really get it. I mean, it is, and I mean particularly those who are taking welfare money. I mean, I guess if you have a parent, obviously, who's taking care of you, that's more morally ambiguous, because it's just, I mean, that's kind of between you and your family. But the people who are just taking welfare money and not doing anything and claiming that it's too difficult to work and socialize, it just doesn't really make any sense. And I mean, I was there too. I think a lot of it is just errors on modern parenting and modern environments not being good environments for raising kids, so then people end up having these issues with social anxiety that you didn't really have or think about in the past, but now they're coming up in full swing and it's crazy. So I you know, I'm not saying this to be mean to those people, but I just don't really get what the point is. Like, if you just exist to, and I mean, a lot of that could just be my opinion, right? I guess I mean, I thought I wanted to be a NEET for a while. I don't even think I would want to now. But again, I think a lot of NEETs wouldn't even do what I'm doing. Like, I think there's a difference, you know? Because if I was a NEET, I know what I'd do now. I would record and I'd talk a lot. I'd probably just live stream just about all day. You know? And I think a lot of NEETs get caught in a consumption trap where they might not even be creating anything. But either way, I guess I just think more practically about it, and I think a lot of people are blind to it. If you're not making anything tangible, you probably should do something tangible, you know? I guess that's just how I feel about it. I don't know. I always felt a push to do that. And actually, I didn't always. I really do also think it's a combination of a lot of other things too, like malnutrition. But I don't think it's right for people to just take welfare and claim that it's too hard to work a job when it's still so much easier of an existence than it was in the hunter-gatherer times, and people romanticizing about living off the grid. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And I'm speaking from experience, so again, I'm not trying to be mean. I guess I'm just critical of it now, but because the question becomes, I guess a lot of these people would agree, because it seems like that's generally the discourse is, what is the purpose? A lot of these people are miserable, you know? So I don't even know if being a NEET is particularly a problem, but you still have to have a purpose. Like, if I was a NEET, I know what I'd do. I'd probably just talk all day, every day. I mean, I'd probably make this kind of content all the time. There'd just be a live stream. I might even live stream me sleeping. Just constantly running a live stream. I don't know. Because that's just what I feel like I want to do. It's interesting to me. It gives me a sense of purpose, I suppose. So, sorry, this person's just not driving properly and just being, yeah. Again, what else is new? Because they braked for no reason, and then they floored it. I'm not even going to explain. I just have to overlook it. People are just not. I mean, hey, sometimes I'm stupid at driving. But it's just causing me gear shifts. It's costing me gear shifts. Cause and costing, same difference. But yeah, I don't want to act like I'm not sympathetic to those people. But I think there's a lot of environmental reasons for it. I don't know. That's kind of where I guess I disagree with a lot of the extreme free will stuff, but I do think it can be healthier to think that free will matters, but not always. Not always. Because now I'm realizing that too. I mean, sometimes it might feel miserable maybe that the whole argument with that is, even though it feels miserable to believe in free will, even if you're in a bad situation, that's what the growth is. It's coming to terms with that. That's probably what. There's probably psychological truth to that too. But I guess I wonder about these things, But I think it's evident. I mean, I guess if you were NEET and happy, then that's fine, but I don't know, it's tricky. Because even now, I still feel like I am a NEET. I don't know. I don't know if I'm truly I mean, for now I'm a functioning member of society, right? But I don't really know how long that's going to last. Things are getting weird. It's just dependent on whether my podcast takes off, really. I don't know what else is going to carry me over to the finish line. So, but yeah, it's been schla, but it's time to buy schla. So, see ya schla.